I don't know how to even start this. I've been hiding this for so long, and I guess I just need to say it, to get it out of me before it eats me alive. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to cheat. I used to think it was something other people did. The kind of people who didn't care about their relationships or weren't capable of real love. I used to judge. I used to say, if you love someone, you never hurt them like that. But life's a lot more complicated than that, I guess. So, to give you some context, I've been with John for almost 7 years. We met in college. I was 22, he was 24. We clicked almost instantly. He's the kind of guy who's steady, dependable, and the kind of person you can imagine building a life with. And for a long time, that was enough. I thought it was enough. But, somewhere along the way, things shifted. The spark wasn't there anymore. I don't know exactly when it happened. It wasn't like one moment where everything fell apart, more like a slow fade. Like the lights in a room slowly dimming until you don't even notice it until it's too late. John and we'd still have our good times, our laughs, our talks, but I started feeling this distance between us. I felt lonely, even though we were together, and I didn't know how to talk about it, to tell him that something felt missing. I didn't even know what that something was. And then there was Matt. It started innocently enough. Matt worked at the same company as I did, and we started seeing each other a lot at work events. He was funny. He was easy to talk to. We'd grab lunch together, get coffee during breaks. At first, it was just friendly banter, nothing more. But somewhere along the way, I began to feel something for him. I couldn't stop thinking about him, the way he looked at me, the way he made me laugh when John couldn't. He wasn't perfect, but he made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in a long time. I should have pulled back. I should have told myself it was wrong, that it was unfair to John. But I didn't. I let it go on. One day, after a few drinks at a company party, Matt and I ended up alone. He kissed me, and I kissed him back. I remember it so clearly, how his lips felt, the way his hands held me, how everything just felt so different. I didn't feel guilty at first. It was almost like an escape, like I was living in a different world for those few minutes. A world where I didn't have to worry about disappointing anyone, about being perfect. After that night, everything changed. We started seeing each other more often, and I found myself craving his attention. I would lie to John, saying I was working late or going out with friends. And all the while, I was with Matt, and I hated myself for it, but at the same time, I didn't want it to end. I didn't want to lose that feeling. The feeling of being wanted, of being noticed. It made me feel alive again in a way I hadn't in so long. John had no idea. He had no clue what I was doing behind his back. I kept pretending like everything was fine at home. I would come home from work, make dinner, talk about my day like nothing was different. And then, when he'd go to sleep, I'd sneak out to see Matt or send him texts. I felt like I was living 2 different lives, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep it up. But the longer it went on, the more trapped I felt. I couldn't get out of it, even though I knew I should. I was drowning, but I didn't know how to breathe. There were days when I felt guilty, days when I'd look at John and wonder how I'd let it get this far. He deserved better than me, but then I'd see Matt, and I'd feel that rush again, that escape. The guilt faded, only to return when I was alone, when I could hear my conscience screaming at me. But I would push it down because, in those moments with Matt, I wasn't the woman who was failing her marriage. I wasn't the woman who was betraying someone she loved. I was someone else, someone new, someone alive. But eventually the guilt came back stronger. It always does, doesn't it? The lies pile up, and eventually they have to come crashing down. I knew it was only a matter of time before John would find out. I didn't know when, but I could feel it in my bones. It was coming, and when it did, I didn't know how to face it. I didn't know how to face him. And when it finally did happen, when he found out, I couldn't even look him in the eyes. The shame was too much. I knew I had destroyed something I couldn't fix. But at that moment, all I could think was, how did I let it get this far? The day John found out, it's like my whole world just stopped. I had known it was coming, but nothing prepares you for that moment. For the moment when the person you've been lying to for so long looks at you with eyes full of confusion, hurt, and betrayal. It's like a physical punch to the gut. I still can't get that image out of my head. His face. Pale, like all the blood had drained out. I can't stop hearing the way his voice cracked when he said, "Is it true?" I was sitting on the couch that morning, just scrolling through my phone. I didn't know John was back early from his meeting. He'd come home unexpectedly, and I guess he had found something, maybe a text, an email, or one of the photos I'd carelessly left on my phone. I don't even know, but it didn't matter. The second I looked up and saw him standing there, I knew exactly what was happening. There was no point in denying it. His eyes, God, his eyes, were already telling me he knew. And yet, I still tried. I still tried to spin some stupid story about how it wasn't what he thought. I told him I hadn't been doing anything wrong, as if that somehow made the truth less painful. But it didn't work. The more I spoke, the more I could see him pulling away, the more I could see him dying a little inside with every word I said. I don't even remember the details of that conversation. All I know is I kept making it worse, trying to explain myself in ways that didn't even make sense. I kept saying, "I'm sorry, John, but I don't know what happened. I never meant for any of this. I love you. But the thing is, I didn't even know if I loved him anymore. I didn't know if I loved Matt, either. The truth is, I didn't know what love was anymore. I was so tangled up in everything that I couldn't even see straight. John didn't yell. I thought he might, but he didn't. He just went quiet. The kind of quiet that makes everything feel colder than it already is. I couldn't stand it. I could feel the anger and hurt building up inside of him. But he kept it all in, holding it back like a dam that could break at any moment. He just looked at me like he didn't recognize me. And I couldn't blame him. I didn't recognize myself either. It was almost like I was floating above the situation, watching it happen to someone else. I saw him get up, pacing the room. "How long, huh?" he finally asked. His voice was barely a whisper, like it was too heavy to say out loud. I didn't know how to answer him. I had no idea how long this had been going on. I didn't know if I could pinpoint the exact moment when I crossed the line. Was it the first kiss with Matt? Was it the first time we went out for drinks, and I didn't go home right away? Or was it the first time I lied to John, telling him I was working late when I was really with Matt? Holding hands. Kissing him. I remember saying, "It's been a few months." That's all I could say. I couldn't lie any more than that. And when I said it, it was like he crumbled. I could see him trying to hold it together, but he was shaking. He just stood there, staring at the floor for the longest time. Then he looked up at me and said something that hit me like a ton of bricks. "I trusted you. How could you do this to me?" I couldn't answer him. I just kept staring back at him, tears starting to fall. I wanted to take it all back. I wanted to erase everything I had done, to go back in time and tell myself to stop before I made any of these mistakes. But I couldn't. I couldn't fix it. John walked out of the room, and for a moment, I thought maybe he just needed space. Maybe he just needed to be alone to process everything. But when he came back, he had his suitcase in hand. "I'm leaving," he said. And just like that, my world started to crumble around me. I begged him not to go. I grabbed his arm, crying, apologizing, telling him I was sorry. But he pulled away from me like I was a stranger. He looked at me one last time, but it wasn't the same look. It wasn't the look of the man who had once loved me. It was the look of someone who had been completely betrayed. "I don't even know who you are anymore," he said, and with that, he walked out the door. And I don't even know how long I sat there after he left. The house felt so empty. I kept telling myself I'd hear his footsteps, his voice calling me, but all I heard was silence. The kind of silence that presses in on you until you can't breathe. In the days that followed, I tried to reach out to him. I called, I texted, I begged him to talk to me. But he wouldn't answer. Not once. It was like I didn't exist. And every day that went by, it hurt more and more. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart would race, hoping it was him. But it never was. I knew I had messed up beyond repair. I knew I couldn't undo what I had done. But I didn't know how to live with myself either. Every time I passed a mirror, I looked at the stranger staring back at me, the woman who had done the unforgivable. I couldn't stop thinking about how much I had destroyed, how much I had thrown away. John had been everything to me, and now I had nothing. It's been a few weeks since John left. I've tried to move through the motions of my daily life, but it feels like I'm walking through a fog. Everything feels off. Work is harder than usual, and even when I'm with my friends, I can't shake the guilt. I see the way they look at me now, like they know something's wrong, but no one's saying it out loud. They don't need to. I can feel the weight of my own actions sitting like a boulder on my chest. I didn't want to believe it at first. I kept thinking maybe he'll come back. Maybe he just needs time. But deep down, I knew I had pushed him too far. I betrayed him in a way that most people can't come back from. And yet, there I was, clinging to some shred of hope that maybe, somehow, things could go back to how they were. The first few days after he left were the worst. I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't stop replaying every moment, every conversation, every lie I had told. I could hear his voice in my head, asking me why I did it. I could feel his eyes on me as he asked, "How long?" And I could see the pain in his face as I told him the truth. The guilt didn't fade, it just intensified. I wanted to fix it. I wanted to fix him, fix us. But I didn't know where to begin. I didn't even know if I was deserving of forgiveness. How could I expect him to come back to me when I had broken him so completely? I decided I had to do something. I had to try to make things right, even if it was a long shot. So, I wrote him a letter. I poured everything into it, everything I'd been holding back, every feeling of regret, every apology, every tear that had fallen since he left. It wasn't easy to put it all on paper, but I needed him to understand. I needed him to know that I knew what I had done to him, to us. I started the letter by telling him how sorry I was. It felt like such a small word compared to the devastation I had caused. I wrote about how much I hated myself for what I had done. I told him that I didn't know why I had cheated. I didn't know why I had hurt him in that way. I had let my own selfishness get the best of me, and in doing so, I had lost the one person who had always stood by me, who had always been there, no matter what. I told him that I would never be able to take back what had happened, but that I was truly, deeply sorry. I promised him that I had learned something through all of this, that I had learned just how much I depended on him, how much I needed him. I was so lost in myself for so long that I hadn't seen what was right in front of me. I had taken him for granted, and now I was paying the price. When the letter was finished, I sat there for a long time, staring at it. I didn't know if he would read it, or if it would even matter at this point. But I had to try. I had to put my feelings into words and give them to him, even if it didn't fix anything. I folded the letter and put it in an envelope with his name on it. I drove to his apartment later that day, unsure of whether I should just leave it in his mailbox or try to see him. When I got there, I stood outside his door for what felt like hours. I didn't know what I was hoping for. Maybe that he'd open the door and tell me everything was going to be okay. Maybe that he'd take me back in his arms and say he forgave me. But I knew better. I knew that wasn't going to happen. I knew that he needed space, that he needed time to process all of this. So, I left the letter in the mailbox and walked away. I didn't look back. I don't even know why I did it that way. Why I didn't just knock on his door and beg him to talk to me. But I felt like the letter was the only thing I could give him that might show him how much I regretted everything. It wasn't until a few days later that I got a response. I was at home when I saw his name pop up on my phone. My heart stopped. I had been waiting for this moment, but when it finally came, I wasn't sure I was ready. I took a deep breath and opened the message. It was a short one. He said, "I read your letter. I don't know what to say. I'm hurt, and I don't know if I can ever trust you again. But I'm willing to talk." That was it. No big declarations of love. No promises to work things out. Just the raw truth: I'm hurt, and I don't know if I can forgive you. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't much, but it was something. He was willing to talk. That was more than I thought I'd get. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop. I don't know what I expected from that meeting, but when I saw him sitting there, I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. He didn't look the same. He wasn't the man I remembered. He was quieter, more guarded. I could see the anger in his eyes, the sadness, the disappointment, and it made me sick to my stomach. When he spoke, it was like hearing my own guilt in his voice. "You say you're sorry," he said. "But how do I know you mean it?" How do I know this won't happen again? I don't even know if I can trust you anymore. The words hit me harder than I could have ever imagined. I had been so caught up in my own self, loathing that I hadn't considered the extent of the damage I had done to him. And now I had to face the consequences. I know I don't deserve your trust, I said, but I'll do anything to rebuild it. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I don't know if he believed me, but I meant it. I meant every word. It's been months now since that conversation with John, months of trying to piece myself back together, trying to make sense of everything I've done, and yet, the more I try, the more I realize just how much I can't fix. Not for him. Not for me. Not for us. When I think about where we were a year ago, I can hardly recognize myself. It's like I've become someone else. Someone I don't know. Or maybe someone I've always been but refused to see. The guilt has become a constant companion. One that sits on my chest at night, making it hard to breathe, making it hard to sleep. Even though I've apologized 1,000 times, even though I've done everything I can to prove to John that I'm sorry, I know I can't undo what I've done. And maybe that's the hardest part of it all. Realizing that there's no going back. There's no rewinding time. John and I haven't spoken much since that day at the coffee shop. There were a few more meetings, a few more exchanges of words that meant something in the moment, but felt empty as soon as they left our mouths. I think we both knew that things had changed permanently. His eyes had lost the softness they once had when he looked at me. He became more distant, more guarded, and I couldn't blame him. I had broken something I couldn't fix, and no matter how hard I tried to prove my remorse, I couldn't make the hurt go away. At first, I told myself it was okay. I told myself that I was doing everything I could to earn back his trust, that if I gave him enough time, if I showed him that I could be the person he deserved, maybe, just maybe, we could find a way back to each other. But with every attempt to rebuild what we had, I could see more and more that it wasn't just about earning back trust. It was about something deeper, something I had broken inside of myself. As time went on, I started to realize that the real issue wasn't about fixing my marriage. It was about fixing me. I had been so wrapped up in the idea of fixing things with John, in the guilt of my actions, that I hadn't taken a single moment to reflect on what I had done to myself. Why did I cheat? Why did I betray someone who had been nothing but good to me? Why did I let my own insecurities, my own desires, drive me to destroy the one thing that mattered more than anything? John, in his silence, had given me the space to think. At first, I resented him for it. How dare he leave me with nothing but my thoughts? How dare he make me face the person I had become? But now, months later, I understand why he did it. Because I had to face myself. And I think deep down, he knew I wasn't ready to face that person until he stepped away. The hardest part is knowing that, even if he does forgive me one day, it won't be the same. It will never be the same. The love we once had, the trust we built together, it's been shattered. And maybe that's just something you can't fix. Maybe some things break beyond repair. Maybe the love we shared was beautiful, but it was never meant to last in the way I imagined. I've spent a lot of time thinking about Matt too. What we had was real in a way that I didn't expect. For those months, he made me feel special, wanted seen. But now, I see that it was never about him or me. It was about my own inability to appreciate what I already had. I didn't need Matt to make me feel alive. I needed to find that in myself. I needed to stop looking for something outside of me to fill the emptiness that I couldn't admit was there all along. Matt's gone now. We both knew it couldn't last, even if we tried to convince ourselves otherwise. He knew what I had done to John, and I could see the cracks forming in our relationship too. I think we both realized that we were just filling a void, not building something real. I don't know if John and I will ever be able to fully reconcile. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But what I've learned in these months is that the hardest part of all of this isn't the brokenness. It's the recognition that I was the one who broke it. I wasn't the victim. I was the one who caused the hurt. And that's the thing I keep coming back to. We all want to believe we're the hero in our own story. We want to think that, no matter what mistakes we make, we can always fix things. We can always go back. But the truth is, sometimes you can't. Sometimes the damage is too deep, the scars too permanent, and you have to learn to live with that, I don't think John and I will ever be the same. And I don't think I'll ever be the same either. Maybe, in some strange way, that's for the best. Maybe this is my opportunity to grow, to finally understand the kind of person I want to be, not someone who's looking for validation outside of herself, and not someone who's afraid of being alone, but someone who can stand on her own 2 feet, own up to her mistakes, and rebuild herself from the ground up. I don't expect John to come back, not in the way I once hoped, but I do hope he finds peace. I hope he finds someone who can love him the way he deserves, someone who will never hurt him the way I did. As for me, I don't know what the future holds. But I do know this. I will never forget the lessons I've learned, no matter how painful they are. And maybe, just maybe, someday, I'll find a way to forgive myself.